The Mandalorian first aired in 2019 and has become a revered entry in Star Wars and a seminal series in television history. The setup may seem simple enough. A bounty hunter ends up on the run to keep a child safe from the evil Empire. But perhaps its simplicity and ease of access is what makes the heart of the show so appealing to audiences. Welcome to Workshopping Stories Explorations. In this episode, we'll take a look at how the art of characterization has led to one of the most beloved characters in motion pictures, the Mandalorian himself, Djarin. We'll be discussing major plot points of The Mandalorian, as well as the Book of Boba Fett, so please note, there will be spoilers. Characterization and characteristics can present storytellers with a conundrum. Too on the nose, and you're at risk of boring your audience. Conversely, springing completely unexpected character behaviors onto an audience will feel more like a cheap gotcha tactic instead of a compelling reveal.
Was Philip! The pizza delivery boy from when they ordered pizza at the beginning of the story. Come on, you guys.
And we see these delicate balancing acts in characterization and storytelling consistently, regardless of the medium. In storytelling, characteristics are what make up characterizations. These are the things we can observe about a character. How do they dress? What's their posture? Do they slouch over, limp? Or do they stand upright and rigid? What drives these characterizations is the underlying character, their internal traits, such as their past, wants, and needs. So what would a man who looks like a walking tank feel like? Dangerous, cold, brutal, but we can also consider this. Perhaps the solitary man under impenetrable armor is longing for someone to see him for who he is underneath it all. Our first impression of Mando, played by Pedro Pascal, is someone who doesn't need connection, judging from appearances and behaviors so far. The characterization begins straight from the opening scene. We see him as a professional bounty hunter, a stoic warrior. But as the episode progresses, we see more. Mando has found ways to adapt, even if it doesn't seem like he's ever able to fully fit in anywhere other than his own ship. And so, we can speculate Mando must need something more than what life he's already carved out for himself. He suffered loss, and at such a young age. This background of perseverance amongst great loss is what makes getting through the first episode so compelling. He's not just an unfeeling tough guy. There's clearly more to learn about him on this journey. Despite his gruff exterior, Mando is willing to learn under the tutelage of a hermit in order to get his quarry, even if it puts him in slightly undignified situations. He hates droids, but is still willing to work with one. He only terminates it when it's about to kill an innocent. Again, these behaviors are indicative of someone who's more than a soulless hunter. And these hints of there being more to Mando blossom into one of the sweetest revelations of all time. Djarin is a great dad. Much like the Campbell's classic monomyth, Mando refuses this call at first. It's something he hasn't trained in, or had for long in his own upbringing, and would completely upend the relative ease of routine he's built for himself. And for most people, change of that scale is frightening. The beauty of his relationship with Grogu is even characterized in their appearance. The fearsome and fortified warrior with a curious and adorable child. A man who could kill in an instant also has to help his child in and out of a booster chair. The perfect odd couple. And what's more endearing about this is how we don't even get his real name, Djarin, until the end of the first season. It's compounded by the fact his face is then revealed in the season finale. And it's not a glorious reveal. Din is barely able to cling on to life until he is saved by the same droid he destroyed in episode 1. But now getting the privilege of learning his name and how the man beneath the armor actually looks was deeply impactful. Up until this point, we've been able to bond with, and come to care for, a man whose face we've never seen and whose name we've never heard. This balance of characterization sets the audience up with enough puzzle pieces to realize that Din is capable of more than just being one set of characteristics. He's not just what he looks like at first glance, but he's also not someone who's masquerading as a fierce warrior. As a character, he's believably multifaceted. And we see this play out in fascinating ways.
Just like the good old days, Mando. Huh?
The Prisoner, Episode 6, is an episode that fills in some gaps for the audience. Din feels like a man reborn with a new purpose, willing to take on the remnants of an evil empire to keep his child safe. But then he's faced with one of the most difficult things any person must contend with: their past. Din needs funds to be able to keep moving discreetly through the galaxy as he's hunted by countless mercenaries and the Empire itself, which leads him back to ghosts of his past.
You haven't changed one bit.
These words from Rand, played by Mark Boone Jr., weigh painfully on Din. Being faced with what may be the worst version of yourself is one of the most difficult things a person has to do. In this episode, Din is reconciling with his past. It's a past that seems to be riddled with poor choices, rather than inescapable circumstances. With such harrowing moments from his childhood, and subsequent strict upbringing with the Mandalorian covert, Din has complicated processing he needs to go through. But like many, he isn't afforded the time or place to really work out these feelings in healthy ways before he's out in the world and on his own. Din's coping seems to have evolved over time. We've seen hints of this through his pragmatic approach to life. He's good at what he does, not perfect, but also able to quickly adapt and work through it. And in The Prisoner, we see hints of his past that paint in some details of how Din coped and adapted when he was younger. However, this old version of Din doesn't feel like an unearned surprise. The realm of possibility for his character has been set up enough to think maybe he's made some rough choices before he got to this point. It's similar to why it didn't feel strange for Din to ultimately take in baby Grogu. We saw seeds of softness throughout the first episode, yet this history he has with Rand and his group is obviously not the best version of him. Running with the crew, with the likes of Rand and Xi'an, played by Natalia Tena, doesn't bring out the best in a person. And obviously he was deeply involved with this group, judging by Rand's praise and Xi'an's air of a woman scorned. Din recognizes this, the guilt obvious in his clear discomfort interacting with them. And Din refuses to accept anything that Rand brings up to harken back to their times together. Din's adamant refusal to reminisce is concerning, because we see how much of a force of nature Din is now. But imagining him with a corrupted moral compass, surrounded by a group that encouraged brute force and deadly skill over compassion and thought is, gently put, deeply unnerving. Rand was considerably amused by the old version of Din, maybe even respected him.
Yeah, we were all young, trying to make a name for ourselves. But running with a Mandalorian, that brought us some reputation.
Oh, yeah? What did he get out of it?
I asked him that one time. You remember what you said, Mando? Target practice. Target practice.
His exchange about younger Din's casual remarks when reminiscing about murdering people on jobs sounds like it sickens Din. Here we can see the beauty of motion picture storytelling. The culmination of screenplay, character design, costuming, acting, and directing can make a faceless and nameless character like Din translate universal emotion and ultimately a story.
Stuff, didn't we?
That was a long time ago.
Wow.
Din's words are strained, not too emotional, because it seems like letting your guard down around this group would spell trouble. The slight incline of his head and almost imperceptible tremors as he listens to the others talk about his past. We don't need to see his face. We know he wants nothing to do with this, but feels like he has no other choice. Right now, he needs to keep his child safe. And even if he has to face a darker version of himself to do it, he will. The sweet exchange of father and son at the end of the episode lets the audience know that Din faced his demons and was able to, for now, defeat them. The deep sigh of relief before he untwists the knob that his son loves so dearly, as he cracks a joke about ever considering this job to be a good idea, is a sigh of relief for the audience too. Din would need to be in dire straits to ever go back to his old ways. He has a new life and purpose now, until the tragedy. We see echoes of this old version of Din in the book of Boba Fett. His introduction isn't too different than the Din we've come to know. But it definitely feels more like the first time we ever saw him in episode 1, before he met Grogu. They even bring back the first words we've ever heard him utter.
I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold.
The frustration in dealing with a lippy bounty culminates into sloppy, rage-filled fighting, followed by a gratuitous completion of bringing the bounty in cold. Sadness and anger are said to be reflections of the same basic feeling. And judging by how Din acts after he completes his mission of sending Grogu to train with Luke Skywalker in the ways of the Jedi, Din is clearly sad and angry. The sheer exhaustion and pain from his injuries that seeps into every step he takes feels like his armor is too heavy. That even trying to go back to his old way of living may not be enough to keep him going. This dance of reconciling his past with his present and hints of an uncertain future isn't something that feels out of character for Din or forced by overeager storytelling. Instead, it feels like we're truly on a journey with this man who's navigating not only the complexities of the galaxy, but the complexities of being alive. It seems like every chance Din has to fix the emptiness inside him is met with denial. He seeks out the familiarity of his Mandalorian covert and is cast out as an apostate. He wants to see his son and is told he's being selfish if he does. He wants to help Boba Fett's cause and thinks he got his ally killed. Din thinks it's his story's end. He's willing to die in the name of honor because it seems like that's all he has left. And he does fight with every ounce of honor he has. In the thick of it, as the rising action boils, hope appears in the most unlikely place. And the pure joy and relief that seizes up his body when Grogu comes back to him, chooses him, is what does it. Din knows there's more left in the universe for him, and that everything that's happened up to this point wasn't for nothing. This story lets us know that sometimes we can stray from the best version of ourselves, that even when it feels like defeat after defeat, and failure after failure, there's always something left. Even if it's just yourself. And if you keep trying, just getting to the next day, there will be something that makes it all worth it. And as we heard from Jon Favreau himself, there's so much more we can explore with this amazing character, his son, and their journey. Thank you for watching this episode of Workshopping Stories Explorations. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Let us know your favorite Star Wars story in the comments below. We'll be responding to some comments in an upcoming video. Thanks again for watching.